So anyway, Project Veritas, I am not allowed in theaters. My Wikipedia reads like I am a World War II war criminal. Okay, Project Veritas, they say he's revealing truth and showing people all this. He is 100% approved by the system and functioning as part of the operation that is anti-America, anti-our nation, anti-sovereignty. He's 100% a globalist, 100% ANCAP, which is all the same thing. They want to disband our institutions so that they can buy and sell us. It's ridiculous, guys. The FBI is not against you. I know there's corruption. I know, oh, how dare you, Hillary. I get it. In general, the FBI, like, okay, the two CNN that just got arrested were arrested by the FBI. They're not arrested by Wells Fargo or... So anyway, James is 100% a tool puppet. It is a mission of mine to reveal closets before they marry a woman and try to destroy their life. Why is it personal for me? Because my dad did that to my mom. And I'm not mad at him. It's fine. I wish him a great life. My mom's doing great. If I can just show enough people what the signs are, then maybe they won't end up at 75 years old wondering where the retirement went, because your closet husband has been giving it to for sex. Lying, manipulating, and I have a right to have this mission. People are like, oh, just forgive your dad. I have forgiven my dad. I don't judge my dad. My mom's doing great. We're doing awesome. But I have a certain set of skills. Okay, so I'm going to show the patterns of behavior. And if you're a woman, don't marry these guys. Another reason I'm really passionate about this is because this is not right wing. This is global 100%. There's no difference between James' operation, his conservative operation, and Hollywood elite parties. No difference. They're the same group of people. Okay, I'm not allowed in theaters. James can perform anywhere he wants. Why is that? Because he's authorized. Oh, but Big Bear, you're such a bigot, racist, homophobe. Nationalism, Christianity, traditional values, family values will be always labeled racist, bigoted, homophobic. You know, it's because I'm against sodomy. I think that nations exist and they have to do with your ethnicity in a lot of ways. Some ways, not totally. You can have different ethnicities within a nation as long as there's a dominant majority and they all have similar worldviews and customs and heritage. It's a fact. The Cherokee Nation is tested by a blood test. I can't go to Japan and have a piece of paper say I'm Japanese. I'm not Japanese. So that's going to get me labeled these words that people get so angry at. And the irony is I look down at way less than mainstream. Okay, let me just, they believe that gun violence is because of the gun, not the man. I don't know the stat. 95% of gun murders in America are on. You know, when you look at the stats of gun violence in America, it's overwhelmingly, it's people with, if you believe they're human beings, which I do. I believe a sentient man, a living man, who has the divine spark of the creator and has free will. Okay, so I think the man murdered another man. If you believe they're subhuman animals, you would blame the object. For example, if I had a fire in my house, like a little fire pit, I let a coyote in, and the coyote knocked it over, you would say, oh, you shouldn't have that fire pit. You'd blame the fire. You'd say, well, then you're stupid for having a cauldron of fire in the middle of your living room. How would the coyote not have knocked it over? They're coyotes. You know, like an animal, you blame the object. You say, oh, I gotta get all this out of the yard or something, or else George will blah, blah, blah. Because George doesn't have the ability of not doing it. Okay, if it's a human being, you say, oh, Darnell murdered a man. You don't say, the gun murdered a man. You do that when someone is subhuman. So I actually am not a white supremacist. I don't believe that doesn't have the spark of divinity, free will, the ability to not commit murder. Mainstream blames it on the object because they view it as an animal. In fact, they view all of us kind of as an animal. It's Satanism, but especially so. Okay, this is behavior. Not only is it behavior, it's anti-American. They want to disband our FBI. And I know some of you guys find that to be a popular opinion. I do not. It's just another attack at our institutions. Okay, so I had to remove the song because it was called King for a Day. It's a rave club anthem. Individuals often fantasize about being held down by militant authorities, and the reason they do this is that because it alleviates them of the guilt they feel of doing consensual sodomy. Before I play this, so here's James, and and he's doing his boy band routine, and he's now about to. This is alleged heterosexual. That's all. He's now going to act out a fantasy where the FBI authorities are going to hold him down and make him do stuff. Okay, he's just looking around. He's depressed. And now they're holding him down. They put him on his knees, these men. And then they're doing this dramatized act out of, and then he breaks free. Well, he's breaking free. And now he's getting the crowd fired up, you know, by running around. And they're playing King for a Day. Look at him. He's pointing around. He's jumping around in his little press shirt because he's so oppressed, guys. This isn't oppressed. Guys, it's ridiculous. And so now they have this like club ravey scene going for all conservative Americans. That's not conservative. That's not right wing. That is. So the reason they do that, that's why they love Nazis. They're obsessed with Hitler. You ever notice that it's quote unquote the left, like the raging liberal freak shows that are always thinking everyone's a Nazi? You ever wonder why? It's because their fantasy is a man in a uniform with high leather boots just following orders to hold them down and put something inside of them. That's also why this is all psychological. It's all psychological. Leather daddies, exactly, Burn Bear. Most men watch Nazi. I read this book once called a Billion Little Secrets about what the porn industry figured out about human psychology based on their search history. Fascinating stuff. And one thing about is they are obsessed with authoritarianism. Why? Because a lot of times they became because they didn't have a strong male role model. You're not born. No one's born. That's ridiculous. And so another thing is they have a lot of shame. So they overindulge in these fantasies of a strong male role model that now becomes a fetish because they didn't have it as a child. And so also they want to do their sodomy. They want to do but they don't want the weight of free will. So they want someone else to make them. Actual fantasy is to be taken into a little room by a well-built Nazi who forces. Okay, now if you want to watch this again, this is pathological behavior out of jail. The FBI is one of our justice systems. Now, is there corruption? Yes, of course there is. But in general, would you rather a world without it? Like, you know, a lot of my former ANCAP friends don't even return my texts anymore because their entire worldview is so ridiculous. It's like, oh, hey, how's LA doing without police? They don't even have an argument anymore. How's the free market handling that? Because there is private security. There is. Oh, how dare you? They're not allowing us. No. A lot of them have private security and they're still freaking out and they're still being assaulted because there's no national or municipal, federal, governmental agencies putting people in jail for committing crimes. It doesn't work. And our anarchy does not work at all. But everybody has a slight derangement in their sexuality or maybe a fetish or something. And if you're really honest about yourself and why you have that, it's either from trauma or the lack of something or just a weird wiring from an early experience. Now apply that to, typically it's the lack of a strong father, the lack of a benevolent father, and trauma or being molested. I mean, that's absolutely what makes people. And so then they're always like fantasizing about I used to be extremely promiscuous. I thought it was going to limit my ability to have a family. Back then I didn't even think about it. I was too busy wondering who the next woman I was going to be having sex with. Unsatisfiable. I wasn't like a creep. I wasn't like manipulating. I could go stretches, but it's like when I'd do a show or when a lot of women would be around me or I had status, I couldn't get enough. I was like, this is great. Okay, that's a form of sodomy. That's why I'm not putting myself above. At this point, I am a little bit, though. I think like closet sodomy, like that stuff is more violent, more destructive. Physically, it's way, way more logical. I think it's really, but so is extreme promiscuity. Because, I mean, what happens? Someone gets pregnant, you like murder it or abandon it, right? It's one of the weakest things you can do as a man. The birth control pill changed worldview of men and women, and it doesn't always work. I'm so fortunate I was never put in a position where I either abandoned my baby or killed it. I mean, that's horrible. And also when you put women on those hormones, it causes cancer, causes infertility, causes depression. I have a good friend who after 1,000 sex partners, now married with 2 kids. Yeah, that's another thing I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to say that if you were once you're evil. That's one of the reasons I am in a very stable and oddly loving position because I see my own past behavior that way. And I understand that you can get out of it and you can have a great future. What I will not be a part of is these people pretending that they're not currently doing it. Like Stephen, James. I don't think Ben, I think he's potentially, I think he was traumatized really bad as a kid and now really has a deranged or non-existent sexuality. He's like, wow, I'm just here. I mean, there's no way that guy's like, well, I'm going to put my hand on your breast and then my erection is going to be, So anyway, like someone can, but it requires extreme honesty. Like you can't just become, it's all good. You literally can. I no longer fantasize about other women. I no longer would ever be a part of that lifestyle. And a lot of it was really thinking about what it was. So much of evil and spellcraft is you don't think like, what was I doing? Are these women on drugs? Have some of them committed suicide since this was made? Were they ever trafficked? And you can guarantee that just about all of them, if not all of them, were molested as children. Then you're like, does she like this guy? Is she on drugs so she can do this act? Your draw to it diminishes a lot. And then you start thinking about that with hookup culture. Like, are you wasting people's time? What would you do if she got pregnant? Are you opening yourself up to another energy that your life up? Well, I'm just saying that whole neocon right-wing thing is all based on extreme sexual perversion. I mean, if you look at all the leaders of this movement, I mean, they're all so weird. Like James is so like flaming. And so the way this works is you get kids to idol worship and then you make them later. Elton John, Freddie Mercury. A lot of these guys never were seen as before. It's the Hannah Montana move that the devil does. You attach someone to Hannah Montana and then slowly they become Miley Cyrus. And then it opens up this horror world to these young girls. And think about what I'm doing this for a good reason. I'm not like just mad at James or Charlie or Stephen. I know I'm smashing idols. It's like I know what is going to happen. So these young kids look up to James. Oh, that's a truth teller. Oh, that's someone who's really for America and for traditional values, even though he doesn't have a family. He's working for another nation and he prances around like a flaming, trying to make people hate their own justice systems. And I know it's corrupt, but it's ours. You want Noahide laws? You want Israeli globalism? Yeah, you want a Chinese currency and your court to be out of Tel Aviv? You sure about that? I know the FBI can drop the ball and sometimes be corrupt and all that, but like, think about what the next level is. And let's say there isn't a court system at all and it's just anarcho-capitalism. Like, so if you get rid of all these systems of governance and then if you have enough money, you can have an army and who's going to stop you? Who would want that? I'll tell you who. People that want to subvert and destroy your nation. And that's why, unlike James, I'm not allowed in that stadium. I'm not allowed in that theater because the quote unquote free market based on debt has kept me out. He's not kept out because he's serving the beast.